Hello. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining in this early office hour this month. If you are joining, or if you're watching in the future, I'm doing this at 8 a.m. because I'm trying to mix up the times that I am doing these live streams so that people in different time zones can participate. But I honestly forgot to post about this with any amount of frequency or consistency. And so I have a feeling I'm going to be answering questions from the spreadsheet rather than from the live chat. But if you do have questions, definitely feel free to ask them in the live chat, which let me make sure that the chat is actually functioning. It should be. But sometimes StreamYard does strange things. Okay, yeah, it looks like it's functioning. So if you have questions, feel free to ask them. If you are tuning into this because it's popped up on your YouTube or your LinkedIn, or I'm also streaming on TikTok on my phone, I am Lauren Shippen. I'm an audio drama writer, director, producer, creator. I have done lots of different things, worn lots of different hats in audio drama, and I'm really passionate about this space and about making it more accessible to people. And so the last Wednesday of every month, I like to do a live stream and answer people's questions about making audio drama. I also have a bunch of free resources about making audio drama that you can find at atypicalartist.co/resources. So be sure to go check that out. And here, I'll put up the URL for that. There's a handbook on production, a handbook on scripting development, a bunch of budget templates, spreadsheet templates for organizing things, and I'm updating it all the time. So hopefully, if you are new to the medium or want to just, change up your process of making audio drama, that those resources can be of help to you. And they, like I said, are entirely free. You can donate money if you'd like for the production handbook, but absolutely get it for free. Okay, so yeah, I have a running list of questions that folks ask me through the spreadsheet through the form on the Atypical website. And so I'm just going to dive into those, but yes, please ask in the chat. If you're watching on LinkedIn and you're not able to ask a question through the chat, which happens sometimes, go on over to Atypical Artist YouTube channel and ask questions there. That should be working. Oh boy, let me just move some things around here. And oh, great. Okay, cool. Aha, yay. I'm so glad that you finally made one, YouTube commenter. Yeah, I have gotten some requests from some people in other time zones to do things a little bit earlier. And so I figured doing an 8 a.m. one, kind of mixing it up, would be fun, especially since in the summertime, especially, I'm up at this hour because it gets very late here where I live, very early, and I like kind of getting up with the sun. Okay, gosh, I have lots of questions here in my spreadsheet, but please, I love answering live questions so I can, answer follow-up questions that people may have. But hopefully whoever asks these questions in the form on the website will eventually watch this back and get their answer. Also, if you are an Atypical Artist supporter or you subscribe to Atypical Plus on Apple Podcasts, all of these are always offered as audio only in our exclusive podcast feed if you prefer to just listen to stuff versus watching it. Obviously, that's not a live stream, but they get uploaded after the fact. Okay, let's get into it. A couple of the questions that I have from the form on the website, atypicalartist.co/create, are very technical, and I do have plans to have a sound designer and sound engineer on the live stream in the future. So I'm setting those aside for now. If you've asked those questions, I'm sorry that I've kept you waiting, but I just am not equipped to answer in-depth questions about EQ and stuff like that. Max, good afternoon. I absolutely didn't know this was happening, but I'm stuck on a very late and crowded train, so it's very well timed. I'm so glad. And yeah, sorry that you didn't know it was happening. I fully forgot to schedule the live stream on YouTube or LinkedIn so that it could be bookmarked. I forgot to put it out in the mailing list. I basically just posted about it on Tumblr and Blue Sky. That's the problem with having a monthly thing, is that sometimes I get a little bit lazy with actually letting people know about it. So next month I'm going to do a better job, I promise. And anybody in the TikTok too, I'm not monitoring that as closely, but if you have questions about making audio drama, please ask them. Okay, so let's get into it. I haven't really looked over these questions yet this morning, so I'm just gonna Pick a random one. Okay. Someone asks, how can I make my show feel less like it's just people standing and talking in different rooms? I want the show to feel dynamic and real, but the audio format can make scene setting and action sequences more difficult. This is a great question, and one that I am actually just going to post in the chat, just so that folks can see it. That should work to both places. It looks like I copied into two comments. So yeah, I mean, if you are familiar with my work, I've gotten off center here in the TikTok stream. Still figuring out exactly how to stream on TikTok and this at the same time. So if you're familiar with my work, you know that most of my work is just people standing in different rooms and talking. That's a real a tenet of my audio drama style. And, I also enjoy listening to those things, but you're absolutely right in that you don't want it to feel like that. You don't want it to get stale. And I think that something to really consider as you're writing scripts and as you're editing your episodes, and even as you're recording them and directing, although of course, you can direct a scene one way and then be able to, edit in the rhythm in a different way oftentimes. But I think I like to think of audio drama episodes as musical compositions in some respects. And, when you're composing a piece of music, you don't want it to have the exact same, one bass note, bass line the entire time. Obviously, you would have, bass lines are often repeating. You're not going to have, the singer just singing all one note or all one lyric. You're going to have fluctuations in arrangement, in rhythm, in phrasing, in harmonics. And I think thinking about the palette of sounds that you are working with in any given audio drama episode and how you can vary those things. So let's take two people in a room talking. It's a huge portion of the Bright Sessions, my first show. That's really where I cut my teeth on writing and making audio drama, was just sticking two people in a therapy office and having them talk. And people, seem to enjoy that. And, there are certain episodes of the Bright Sessions where it's literally that for 30 minutes. And first of all, the way that I made those things interesting was by having the exceptionally talented actors that I worked with on the Bright Sessions. A wonderful actor can cover all kinds of manners of sins, including not great audio quality, which until Misha Stanton joined the Bright Sessions starting in episode 16, I was doing all of the engineering and all of the sound design. That's why the first season and half of the Bright Sessions doesn't sound great. It's kind of sloppy writing or repetitive writing. A lot of the scripts of the Bright Sessions, looking back on them now, they're a little bit too circular. They oftentimes tread over the same beats. And sometimes, we would record those scripts and then I would end up cutting things out in post. And so I would sort of fix those scripts in the editing process. But so much of that was helped and bolstered and sort of not fixed, but made less distracting by having really, really wonderful actors. So that's really your primary, that is your lead singer of the musical composition, right? So making sure that your actors are good at their jobs and that they are equipped to give their best performance, which in my view often means making sure that they're being directed live and that they're acting with each other. I definitely do a lot of recording asynchronously. Async. I'm trying to remember what the full, it's early, what the full word for that is. But yeah, async versus live directing. Async is when you send an actor a script and they just record their lines in their own time in their own setup. Live directed sessions are exactly what they sound like. I'm actually have just a couple more sessions to finish up production on my newest show, 2000 and Late, which should be coming out this fall. And while there have been certain things done async, most of them have been live directed sessions, and most of them have been live directed sessions with the characters that the actors acting within the scene. It's been pretty easy to schedule those things because I play the main character in that show, and so it's very easy for me to direct and act with that actor. But I think making sure that you're setting your actors up for success by recording them live with each other, even if they are in different places recording over Zoom, I think can really make a huge difference and set them up for success and giving the best performance that they can give. So that's one element of your sort of sound palette. The other element, of course, being the other sort of big primary element being sound design, right? And let's say that it is just two people standing and talking in a room, or sitting and talking in a room, whatever. Your sound design probably isn't going to be particularly noticeable in some respects. And I think that in that kind of circumstance, it's most important that the sound design isn't distracting, and that the sound design does just kind of fade away. You know, there are certain things like sound design where oftentimes you don't notice how good it is, and that's how you know that it's very good. That's definitely true of a lot of like film and TV sound design. I think we all, really notice now when like dialogue is kind of indiscernible. And that's sound mixing more than it is sound design. But watching TV with the subtitles on has become a more and more common thing because people can't really understand the dialogue. But back in the 90s, when you were watching TV, you weren't thinking like, wow, the sound mixing on this show is really great, right? You don't notice it because it's doing its job. And its job is to just like give you all of the sound elements all together without you not being able to hear the dialogue, without the sound design being too loud, without the music being too loud. I'm kind of straying from the point of sound design because, that is really more sound mixing than anything else. But if it is just two people standing in a room, you want to make sure that the sound design isn't very distracting. An example of this from my own work is that in the Bright sessions, they are sitting in this therapy room. There is a ticking clock. That ticking clock you can hear in the beginning of most episodes to kind of establish what the room is and kind of give a sense of like, that sort of hypnotic therapy setting. But if you listen carefully, it goes away. It fades out after the first minute or so of every episode because having a ticking clock on 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes of an episode creates a very different kind of feeling. It goes from being hypnotic, relaxing to ticking time bomb, right? And so thinking about elements of sound in that way, right? Where if you were in that room, that ticking clock would be audible to you the entire time, but you probably would start to filter it out after a certain point. Or maybe it would be really harsh on your ears and it would affect the way that you feel in that room. And so thinking about the elements of sound in the space that you're in, and how they affect the listener and focusing on that versus like the realism of like what you'd actually be hearing in that room. I realize I have maybe strayed from the initial question. How can you make it feel less like that? But I do think that this is an important baseline, right? For creating a good listening experience on a baseline. You want good actors who are giving good performances, and you want sound design that is additive and not distracting. Same thing with score, right? And score, I think, is a little bit different. We often don't have, I say we, and I just mean like the indie audio drama sphere, we often don't have the luxury of having our shows fully scored. Continuing to use the Bright sessions as an example, we didn't have scoring in our show at all. I mean, we had ads and credits music, but we didn't have actually in-scene scoring until season 6 and 7, the scenes that were funded by Luminary. It was really only when we got those budgets that we were able to fully score the show. And like, that's something that to me adds so much to that show, and to those seasons, but also those seasons aren't just like people standing in rooms and talking, right? There's lots of action in those. I mean, it is a lot of that, but there's a lot more action than there is in the main run of the show. So if you have music to work with, that can give you like a really interesting different element to your sound palette than just sound design and acting. But with whatever baseline you're working with, making sure that the basic fundamentals of your sound palette are functioning. Then it's about creating a sense of variety. So one thing I think about a lot in writing scripts and in editing episodes is the fact that, so I, ironically, am not an audiobook person. I don't really like listening to them, especially for fiction. I will occasionally listen to a nonfiction audiobook, but like, And like, listen, I think that there's some of the most, fantastic audio acting is going on in audiobooks, right? Like I've lots of friends who are audiobook readers, and obviously my three books were read by the amazing actors who play those roles in the podcast. But it just isn't for me. And it's because my mind really easily wanders when there's just one voice speaking. And that's not true for a lot of people, right? For a lot of people, that's very focusing. But I think about the fact that for a lot of people who listen to podcasts, their minds are going to wander as they're listening. And likely they're going to be doing something different. Or they're going to be doing something else while they're listening to the podcast, right? And so it's like if someone's doing dishes and they're listening to the podcast and they sort of like, and then they get slightly distracted by something in their real world, that's going to be happening like every couple of minutes, right? And obviously everybody's attention span is different, but with audio, I think that there is sort of an understanding that, yeah, people are going to be engaging with their world in a secondary way while listening oftentimes. And so thinking about ways to bring them back into the drama, and that can be done in a myriad of ways. And this is where I'm going to actually answer your question around how do you make it feel less like just two people standing in a room. And that's by creating this variety of sound and rhythm. And you can do that with just these baseline elements of sound design and actors. The sound design angle is obvious, right? Like if you have two people standing in a room, like, and they're having a discussion, have them interact with their environment in some way, right? Have them pour a glass of water, have them sit down, have them stand up, have them pace. Things like sitting up and sitting down and standing up and pacing can be really hard to pull off well if you're not particularly experienced in sound design. Footsteps are like notoriously the hardest thing to make sound convincing and not distracting. So like that's not something I would necessarily rely on if you are starting out like the way that I started out, where it's like you're writing the whole thing and sound designing it yourself and you don't really know what you're doing. Like I had people sitting up and God, sitting down and standing up in the early Bright sessions. And like for that, I literally just recorded myself doing that and then kind of kept that to the bare minimum. And that was sort of the way that they were interacting with their environment. But if you do have a sound designer or you are personally, experienced in sound design, having them interact with their environment can be helpful and also can add to the story in an interesting way, right? Like, let's say that you have two characters stuck in a house and they're, trying to hide from someone. You can have a character walk over to the window and, Venetian blinds have a very specific kind of sound. So you can have them kind of move the blinds. That's just an example, right? And that's them interacting with their environment in a story way, but also that sound is going to register as something new to the listener and they're going to tune back in and be like, oh, well, what's happening now? And the same thing can be done with your actors, right? And with your dialogue edit. So making sure that the tone and pitch and volume of the conversation is shifting. And that's also a huge writing thing as well, making sure that the scene, if it's just a long scene of two people talking in a room, that it's not just staying all in one emotion. It's like there should be a turn in emotion, a turn in the power balance of the conversation that's happening every couple of pages. And so, making sure that like, if let's say, just to continue on this example, like these two characters who are hiding out from somebody who's after them in this house, it would probably start quite low and they would be, talking and sort of getting a lay of the land, moving around the space as they're kind of whispering to each other. And then eventually, maybe they're two bank robbers who have just pulled a bank robbery and they have a disagreement about where to go next. And, eventually the argument's going to get really heated and they're going to start yelling at each other. And then maybe there's a sound of a siren in a distance. And so they have to be really quiet again and even quieter than before. And that's that kind of range that you create in your script and then in your performance and then in your dialogue cut and then in the sound design cut. That's going to create a variety of it's going to create that music, right? That's going to make somebody tune in to tune into the drama. And then the final piece, and I know I've spent now 20 minutes on one question. I am way too verbose, is silence. Silence is so crucial, and it's something that I think people don't utilize enough in audio drama, especially if they're just starting out. Like, I listen to a lot of pilots of indie audio drama to kind of see what's going on in the space, and silence is something that I think sometimes new creators are afraid of. But silence is going to pull your audience back in, is going to make it feel vital in a way that if you just described a scene to somebody, like, okay, let me describe this in a different way. The original asker asks, how can I make my show feel less like it's just two people standing in and talking in different rooms? I want the show to feel dynamic and real. So if you are watching a TV show and there's two people standing in a room and talking, that's not going to feel dynamic and real unless a bunch of other things are happening, right? So actually, to take the example of the finale of the most recent season of The Bear, and I won't spoil anything about the content of the show itself, but if you watch The Bear, or even if you don't watch The Bear, there's 2 episodes that you should watch. The one-shot episode from season 1, and then if you are interested in this particular thing, then I'm about to talk about the last episode of season 4, the most recent season. The last episode of season 4 takes place in sort of the alley behind the restaurant, and it's 2 people for most of it, and then a third person comes out and talks to them. And that's all the episode is. And this is a TV show. Very, very rarely does a TV show just put 2 or 3 people in a location and just make it about that. But it's a good 35, 40 minutes of that. And it really, really works. And it works in part because we've spent 4 seasons with these characters and we care about them and we care about this emotional confrontation that they're having. But it works also because those actors are amazing. The rhythm of the entire scene ebbs and flows. You know, there's quiet, slow moments. There's loud, angry, frantic moments. Then there's this element of this third person coming in and entirely changing the dynamic of the scene. By that point, it becomes a new scene entirely. And of course, the directing is amazing. The lighting, all of the visual aspects of the thing are working. But imagine that you were just watching that all from one angle, basically like a play. If the actors are giving good performances, it's still going to work on a fundamental level, but it won't necessarily have that same kind of dynamic feeling that you would get if you were watching that same scene in the theater, right? Seeing something live has that dynamic and real feeling, whereas if you just sort of have a flat visual, even if the actors are amazing, you still might kind of, wander away from paying attention to it. To me, I think the way that you can mimic camera angles in audio is certainly you can change perspective and you can shift from one POV to another POV, but that also can be confusing depending on kind of the format of your show and the way that you normally frame things. But I really do think about volume and silence and sort of those things. Silence is like a close-up to me. So, if there's 2 characters arguing and sort of there's a big emotional outburst and then you close up on the actor's face and you see them reacting emotionally to it, I think silence functions the same way in audio, where if there's a big outburst or if there's something that, someone is having a hard time admitting or whatever, using that silence, the absence of sound is going to draw your audience's attention back to the action in the same way. That was an extremely long-winded answer. And I know people have been chatting in the chat. So hopefully that answers your question. But yeah, just thinking about kind of the different elements that your audio drama has and the way to create music out of that really is I think the most important thing. But let me catch up with the chat here. Okay. Manuel says, hi from Spain, Lauren. Big fan of your work. No questions. Just thanks for the amazing fiction and for sharing your creative process. Super inspiring. I often mention your work to my audio students. That's awesome. Oh my gosh. I want to hear everything about what you teach. But hello. I'm so glad that people from Europe are watching. It's Atypical Office Hours Euro Edition. New England too. Great. New England gets to be Europe. Your street goods are weird enough. That's true. I make an audio series and don't really listen to fictional audio content too. I get that. So yeah, I don't listen to fictional audiobooks. I do think that if you're making audio drama, it's really important to listen to other audio dramas as much as you're able. I don't listen to as much audio drama as I would like because I am so often in the process of editing audio drama, and it's very, very hard for me to turn off my producer brain and appreciate audio drama without being okay, well, here's what I would do here, and here's what I would do here, and they should have done this. Like, I don't ever want to be sort of listening to an audio drama from a judgmental space. And so I really try to listen from like a purely joyful space. And the thing I like to do is like I often put on, there's a survival video game that I play called The Long Dark, on my computer, and I try to put on an audio drama and just play that game, because like the game doesn't necessarily involve me to like listen it to the audio, especially if I put closed captions on, and it's just like very soothing, and it kind of helps me get into that space of like I am doing something that I enjoy, I'm doing something for the joy of art, because I do think it's really important to sort of hear what other people are up to and to understand what's going on in the space and to get inspiration from your peers. And yeah, if you make an audio series and you don't particularly like one, it's like I've written books. There are audiobooks made of my books, and I don't listen to audiobooks. But finding the thing that you do enjoy, the thing that sort of brought you into audio space in the first place, and seeking that content out, I think is quite important. Footsteps, the sound designer's natural enemy. So true. Okay, Rachel has a question. As someone who has written novels and audio dramas, what are some major differences in your approaches in writing? Oh, great. I was just talking about that. Oh yeah, I check out other audio series too, but have a hard time committing. That I completely understand. I rarely listen to entire shows, honestly. Like I'm really behind on a lot of shows that I enjoy. But I try to listen wide, even if I can't listen deep. Like I think the only purely new to me shows that I've like listened to in their entirety in the last like 8 months. And I say like purely new to me in the sense that like there are lots of shows that I've listened to that I adore, like Hit Singles or like Camland, where I know the creators and I know a lot of the creatives involved. And so like that feels a little bit different because it doesn't lessen my genuine love for those things anymore. But like the sort of activity of like finding an audio drama and like it being entirely new, and me coming in entirely cold and listening to it and just like binging the entire thing is rare. Like I think in the last 8 months, I think the ones that have fit into that are Red Valley and Uncontrolled, and I guess Midst was a while ago now that I found Midst. But like those were 3 shows where I was like just like so like drawn in and so surprised by what they were doing that I ended up listening to the entire thing. Whereas oftentimes I will find a new audio series and I'll listen to the pilot, and sometimes I'll listen to the pilot and be like, you know what, this isn't for me. But more often I listen to the pilot and I write it down and I'm like, okay, I can't wait to get back into this. And then, I fall off of it. And that's something I really want to change in myself. But okay, Rachel, your question. Novels and audio dramas, what are some major differences in my approaches to writing? I mean, I think oh gosh, I mean, I'm going to try not to spend the next half hour answering just this one question. Although, I mean, I do this every month. Maybe answering 2 questions a month is what it's going to be. So yeah, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, I really learned about novel writing from writing audio drama. I mean, it's interesting because before I had even written a script for audio, like the only writing experience that I had was like writing short stories and half-finished novels when I was growing up. I'd never really tried to write a script until I wrote the pilot of the Bright Sessions. So in many ways, like that was my first love. But my first like actually finished and published novels are spin-offs of the Bright Sessions, right? And so I was writing in my own universe, and especially the first, the first book that you write is, I was going to say is the hardest, but no, it's hard every time. It's just hard in a different way. But The Infinite Noise was, my first time really like writing a novel. And in a lot of ways, like I had it easy because I was writing a story that took place within a part of the podcast that I already written, right? It's Caleb and Adam's love story, and I just got to expand on that, right? It was basically like writing fan fiction for my own work, like filling in the missing scenes, right? And so I think I didn't learn my lesson around approaching novel writing until the next novel. And now it's something that, I am still learning all the time, but I just finished writing a couple months ago, my 5th book. I've got 1 book out on submission, and then this 5th book that I've written is kind of a different thing. But because of the nature of that book that I finished writing this spring, or the first draft of, I had to do a very detailed outline. And as a result, writing the book was like, again, hard in its own way, but the actual act of like sitting down every day and just like knocking out some words was a lot less painful than it had been previously because I had a really good outline. And of course, even with my first book, like I had an outline, right? Because I had the podcast. And so even though it wasn't a formal outline, like the things that I've had the hardest time writing were A Neon Darkness, the second book, and the fourth book that I wrote, which is out in submission right now, which is my romance western action adventure queer outlaw book, Desperate Hollow. And both of those books I didn't have a formal outline for, and I just kind of like, I wung it. And that was really, really awful in a different way. Even while writing those books was also like a very enjoyable experience in unique ways. So I think that that's my biggest difference is like I outline a lot more for novels and outlines help a lot more for novels. And I actually end up sticking to the outline a lot more. Whereas for audio drama, I always outline the season, and then like inevitably by the time that I'm like in episode 5 of 10, like I've gone completely off the rails and the outline is totally different. And I really just kind of explore wherever the scenes are going to take me. And so I think that that's sort of like the biggest difference in a lot of ways. And then I think the other big difference is that like writing scripts is much, much easier because it's just conversations and I can kind of like read the dialogue out loud to myself as I go and make sure that everything's feeling right. Whereas in books, you have to describe things. I'm not a visual person. There's a reason that I work in audio. So thinking about what characters look like, thinking about their environments that they're in, thinking about how to describe those things in a way that's interesting. I'm thinking about body language. Even when I'm writing audio, like I'm always picturing the body language, and sometimes I will sort of put some body language stuff into the scripts for the actors, like he shrugs, she sighs, they roll their eyes, whatever it is. And those things can be, like easy to describe in fiction writing fiction prose writing, because you just say those exact same things. But other body language, like the kind of tension, it's like in thinking about Desperate Hollow, the romance western that I wrote, like the tension between two people who are like standing really close and you're not sure if they're going to kiss or not. Like that kind of tension for me is easier to create when I've got actors, right? Because it's like, that's when you play with silence. That's when you play with volume. You can feel the tension between two actors in a much more sort of immediate way than trying to describe that on the page. And so I find that quite difficult. And that's one of the major challenges that I have in writing prose. And the other thing is that like, in a script, you can just be like, all right, and now we're here and now we're in this scene. And it's like, here's a little bit of music and like, here's sort of the establishing sound of the diner bell and, some cooking in the background. And like, that's enough. Like, it's just an established, like, where you are now. Or you're going to know where you are within the first couple of lines of the scene. Whereas in prose, you really have to connect the dots a lot more, oftentimes from scene to scene. So I think that, filling in all of those spaces can be kind of tricky. And filling in, the visual environment of the world can be tricky for me. And so that's where I think having an outline and really knowing what I'm doing very specifically, which with the story, and with each act of the story can help me a lot more. Whereas I think in audio drama, I have a lot more freedom and flexibility because there aren't other elements that are bogging me down. I can just sort of focus on the dialogue. And then I can sort of just follow the story wherever it wants to go. And of course, the other really big piece of this is that writing a novel, until you get your editor involved, is an extremely solitary experience. Whereas audio drama, you are, as the writer, you are a piece of the larger whole, right? You're an incredibly vital piece. But like, even when I'm like making the show that I'm making right now, 2000 and Late, I am the writer, I'm the showrunner, I am the director, I am the producer, I am the dialogue editor, I am the lead actor, right? Like it is my show. It is me all the way down, but I'm still just a small piece of like the larger whole, right? Because I've got my other actors. I've got the amazing Jeffrey Knowles Gardner, who's sound designing. I've got all of these different elements that are translating my ideas into something else and making something new out of it. And so that oftentimes can really I think even knowing that, like even though I wrote, most of the season before I had my cast, just knowing that those elements are going to be coming can kind of change the way that I write sometimes, in a way that I'm not entirely sure how to describe. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Rachel. If it doesn't, let me know. But great question. Okay. Manuel is the creator of audio series such as Biotopia, Mysticas, Bloom, and Tatiana. The latter two also available in English. Tatiana as Unleashed. And from time to time, I also teach audio drama classes. That's very, very cool. I will have to check those out. Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish, so I definitely will check them out in English. But yeah, translating podcasts is something that I think is really, really interesting. And yeah, I know that there are some podcasts out there in other languages that have really garnered huge followings, which is amazing. And that like sort of the adaptation game in audio drama, something like I've gotten some inquiries in the past around people translating the Bright Sessions, and certainly in transcript form. Like I'm totally good with that. I think that's a show where I have my own artistic opinions on performance and things like that, and I would need to know the director really well, because like obviously I can't direct in another language. But yeah, it's an interesting, it's like a sort of sticky wicket that I'm very curious about. So that's a really cool thing that you've done that. I love that. Sorry, I'm just catching up on the chat here. Very cool trying to look into teaching from an acting teacher's perspective, but would be cool someday to incorporate my audio series making. Yeah, I mean, I think that the audio drama class thing is so cool. It's becoming more and more common. I've spoken to lots of different like colleges and even high schools, and master's programs, things like that have a focus on audio. And it's always so interesting to see how those classes are functioning. And I think it's just amazing. Because yeah, when I was in college, like that wasn't on my radar as a thing to even like ask about, let alone take. Max says, as a professional, though unemployed archivist, the character of Gordon Porlock is a deep personal slight, and they're lucky I love him. That's very fair. Oh, good, Rachel. I'm glad that was helpful. Okay, we've got 20 minutes left. Oh gosh, I haven't looked at the TikTok in forever. I'm going to quickly catch up here. It looks like somebody asked a question. William Richardson, any new Breaker coming? The universe expanded in a very cool way right at the end. Yeah, so actually, I mean, so Breaker Whiskey is my microfiction podcast that released every single weekday for an entire year. So 260 episodes in the span of a year. The episodes are between 1 and 5 minutes, microfiction. And it's just me. And yes, it is still releasing twice a month. So the universe did expand in a big way in the sort of first year finale. And it involved a lot of messages from other people in other places. I don't want to spoil too much about the show, but right now you can submit a message to Whiskey, whether it's written or an audio recording that you've made yourself, and that's what's been played on the feed in the last. It's now been a year since that first year ended. The show's been around for 2 years, and I do 2 episodes a month now, because doing 1 episode every weekday was a lot of work. And I kind of like wanted to tell, I sort of knew the story broadly that I wanted to tell in that first year. And now it's listener messages that are either played or read by me, and then Whiskey responds in character to those messages. And so the world is still kind of expanding, but it's obviously expanding at a much slower rate and in a much different way. But the show is still technically running, and will just continue to run in that way until I don't want to do it anymore. So yeah, thank you for asking about that. I really loved making the first year of that show. Yeah, I'm really, glad that I can keep it going, even if I'm not able to dedicate the same kind of sort of artistic effort to it that I had been able to in the past. Oh, great question from the Diaries. Do you have any recommendations for building audio drama community other than Discord, Reddit, any festivals or grants you'd recommend? So yes, um, I'm trying to think. Let me quickly pull up my own production handbook, which I genuinely do look at sometimes myself, because I think yes, audio drama creators, so not fan communities. I think I put this in the most recent version of the. I do update the handbook every now and then, and I'm trying to remember if I. So there's lots and lots of different resources in there. Okay. You know what? I didn't. I need to add that to the next time. So, yeah, the audio drama subreddit for creators is awesome. There's several discords that I'm a part of that are great. The WGA Audio Alliance Discord is wonderful, and that's how I found out about the other two audio drama writers and audio drama creators discords that I'm a part of. I think they're just called that, audio drama writers and audio drama creators. I'll see about getting invites for those, and maybe actually I don't know if I'm allowed to publish them publicly. I joined those from the WGA Alliance Discord, and the WGA Audio Alliance Discord is public. So if you just search WGA Audio Alliance and click on the link, and then like on the bottom right of the Audio Alliance page, there's a join the Discord link. So if you join that, you can go into Discord. It sounds like maybe you're already part of those Discords, but just for anybody else who's not, that's kind of how I ended up in those other two creator Discords. And then, yeah, the audio drama subreddit is huge. That was where I met like a lot of people way back in 2015. It's been active for a really, really long time. And I've been active on it for so long that Reddit gave me the elder badge for that subreddit because I've been there so long. In terms of other creators, or other spots for creators, Tumblr does still have like a community on, for creators. Obviously, like the fan community on there is really the primary thing, but there are creators on there. I actually met, I've met audio drama creators on there. Most recently, the creators of Metropolis, we met through Tumblr. That's actually how I met Gabrielle Urbina back in the day. I don't think he's on Tumblr anymore, but like, yeah, we met like on Tumblr. So yeah, like that Tumblr can still be a great place for that kind of thing. And if you are watching this and you're like, Lauren, Tumblr, surely people are not on Tumblr anymore. How am I, even supposed to use Tumblr? Well, great news. I have a Tumblr guide that is just a Google Doc that is linked to from the production handbook. I'm just going to grab the link right now. I don't know why this is not letting me. Oh, great. Now my computer is freaking out. But yes, if you have the production handbook, there's a link to a Tumblr guide there. Check that out if you want to know how to use Tumblr. Yes, Union Strong, Max, absolutely. I'm actually not even a member of the WGA. I'm a member of SAG, but I have been part of I'm on the organizing committee for the Audio Alliance and have been part of it since 2019, I think, which is crazy. Metropolis is so fun good. It's honestly unfair to the rest of us. Yes, absolutely. Well, and Metropolis is a show. Well, no, I'm not entirely caught up on, but another one of those shows where like now I know the creators, and so it feels like it's like I found out about that show because I connected with the creator on Tumblr, and so it's like doesn't fall into that sort of category of like totally new random discovery for me. I just finished binging it the other day. That's awesome. Yeah, I'm I think 2 episodes behind, maybe. I don't have I'm always perpetually behind on all of my listening. But to get back to the question for festivals and grants, Austin Film Festival has a podcast script competition that I have judged in the past. I haven't judged it in a number of years, but that's something that, I think people have found great benefit from in the past. There's also Tribeca Tribeca Audio is a fantastic, fantastic festival run by the amazing Davey Gardner, and really something worth looking into. It's yeah, I would say Austin and Tribeca. Austin's been doing audio for like a long time, which is awesome. But Tribeca is like really like their audio program now is like very, very robust because Davey has just like turned it into this amazing thing. I've also been a judge for Tribeca, and I've also premiered something at Tribeca. But it's fantastic. And those two festivals are really like the two sort of mainstream, festivals that have really embraced audio and made great programming from it. Austin Film Festival is like a little bit different in terms of Austin Film Festival is a film festival, but is, I would say, like more like a professional conference than anything else. Like there's panels and stuff, and it can be a great place to network. I met a lot of really wonderful people. Austin Film Festival actually is where I first met Jenny Turner Hall, the creator of Disappearance of Mars Patel, and a director and writer who's just absolutely outstanding and amazing. And just, I love her so much. We first met because we were on a panel together at Austin Film Festival. And so like that can be a really great place to network with people. Tribeca, similarly, obviously a great networking opportunity, is more, I would say, like festival in the sense that it's like you're going to like there are panels and things like that, but it's I would say closer to sort of the like, festival side of things, whereas Austin Film Festival is almost closer to like the Comic-Con side of things in terms of like the types of panels that they have. Granted, I haven't been in like 6 years. So the last time I was there was 2019. I haven't been to really any kind of convention in a big way since before the pandemic. I did go to the Resonate Festival this past fall, though, which was fantastic, and is in Richmond, Virginia. Very small, but like very much a podcast creator conference. And their theme this past year was storytelling, and so they incorporated a lot of fiction as well. I'm blanking on what their theme is for this year, but it sounded really exciting. So I'm hoping to maybe get to that in, I think it was in October of last year. In terms of grants, and also in terms of hearing about a lot of these festivals, the All Here newsletter, I wish I had a link easily accessible, but just search All Here newsletter with Here being HEAR, obviously. That is, I'm totally blanking on who puts it together, but truly like just the most incredible free resource that is out there. And I can't believe I haven't linked to it in the production handbook. I comes out once a month. It's a list of grants from all over the world. So depending on where you are, there's going to be something for you. It's public grants, it's private grants, it's residencies, it's festivals, it's award submissions. It's so comprehensive. It's one of those newsletters where it's like you always have to open it in your browser because it's too long for your email. It's really, really incredible. So yeah, definitely check out All Here, subscribe to that. And that can be, a great way to keep up with the different grants. And in general, and I will fix this for the next time I do a production handbook update. I can't believe All Here is not in there already, but I do have a list of a couple of other podcast newsletters that I think are good to subscribe to. Podcast the Newsletter, Fiction Podcast Weekly, Podcast Pointers. I think, what are some of the other ones? There are a bunch of them. I'm Talia is her name. Okay, Talia is the person who does the All Here newsletter. Yeah, I mean, just like incredible work. I'm just so grateful for that. Tribeca is awesome. But yeah, I would say like Tumblr, Blue Sky has a burgeoning community, but really it is those Discords and the subreddit that are the most common places. We used to have a Slack back in the day, and Facebook, and obviously Twitter, but those things have died various deaths. So I think Tumblr might just be the only thing that you could explore that you haven't already. That would be my suggestion. Okay, we've got 10 minutes left. So let me see if I can find a question that I won't just like talk about for 700 minutes. Okay, here's a fun one to end on. Unless somebody in the chat has a question. Let me just quickly catch up on, oops. Wait, sorry, I just invited somebody as a guest by mistake on TikTok. Please ignore that invitation. I don't know what I just did. I'm so sorry. I was just trying to scroll through the chat. Okay, Charlotte Rose asks in the, oh gosh, I don't know why TikTok is freaking out on me. Do you have any favorite fiction podcasts? One of my favorites is Midnight Burger. Yes, I am so behind on Midnight Burger, but I've listened to the first couple episodes and I loved it. Um, I mean, gosh, it's impossible for me to pick a favorite fiction podcast. This is another thing that's in the production handbook, is sort of like a primer of like, here are the podcasts I think that you should listen to sort of get like a good range of different styles. Um, the I mean, obviously, Welcome to Night Vale, an all-time fave. Wolf 359, like, obviously, I'm very tight with many of the people involved in that show, including Gabrielle. But like, I truly, truly think that that's like just one of the great podcasts. Like, I love that show so much. And like, I was a huge fan of that show even before meeting Gabrielle and Zach and Sarah and everybody else. I actually just recorded with Emma Shajarko on Monday for my new show, and she's the best. Like, truly, I love everybody in that show so, so deeply. So I am obviously biased, but I really do think that that is one of the greats. Oh gosh, I've forgotten every single I mean, Wooden Overcoats, right? They're celebrating their 10th anniversary, and same with the Bright Sessions is this year. And I love that show so much. I also love those people so much. I mean, this is the problem. So a lot of my favorite audio dramas, like, it's like you admire something and then you like meet the people and you're like, well, wait, you're amazing people. And I mean, it was the same thing with Jeffrey and Joseph from Welcome to Night Vale, right? Where it's like you meet them and you're like, you're amazing people and you make this amazing thing that I love. Why would I not want to be your friend? And so like, I really do have a hard time separating my bias of like, I love these people as people and they're important people in my life from like, this is a very good piece of art. And both of those things are true. Someone in Becca says, Wolf 359 is my absolute favorite audio drama, followed closely by The Bright Sessions, of course. I am so happy to be playing a second place to Wolf 359. You have no idea. Yeah, so Wolf, obviously, like, I think like Archive 81, The Black Tapes, Limetown, like those are all the shows that really got me excited about the medium when I was first joining. I really do think that Midst, from in terms of like newer shows, like Midst is one of the shows of the last couple of years that just made me sit up in my seat and say like, holy shit, like this is something different, this is something cool. Max, Meeting Your Heroes is actually great and you should always do it. I mean, like, apparently, like, this is what's great about audio dramas. Like, in my 10 years in this medium, I have met a few people who are not great. Because that is just like the law of averages. Something gets big enough and you're going to meet some people who are like kind of awful. But like none of those people have really stuck around, right? Because like the audio drama community as a whole just like doesn't really have patience for people who aren't nice and enthusiastic. And so like really on the whole, and anybody who makes a show that you love is a wonderful, lovely person. So yeah, I yeah, absolutely meet your heroes in audio drama because they're all wonderful. Archive 81 and the Lovecraft Investigations are my original loves in the medium. Those are two great podcasts. And Archive 81 too, I mean, like, God, what Mark and Dan did with Generation Crossing, their audio album that they released at the end of last year, like, that was one of my favorite pieces of audio from last year. I just adored it. And it was such a cool thing for them to do. So yeah, there's so much great stuff out there. This is going to sound self-aggrandizing because technically I did produce it, but I had nothing to do with the creative of it whatsoever. I like literally just like wrote the checks and voiced one role and then edited the dialogue. But In Strange Woods, the musical podcast that Atypical produced, I edited the dialogue for a lot of my shows, like almost all of my shows. I'm more likely the dialogue editor than not. And editing dialogue, even if it's something you've written, or especially if it's something you've written, especially if it's something you're acting in, by the time that like the thing comes out, I never want to hear an episode again, right? It's like, because I've written it, I've recorded it, I've edited the dialogue, I have done the sound design, edits, giving notes and things like that, and I'm so sick of it, I never want to hear it again. In Strange Woods and Life with Leo are two shows that I edited the dialogue for and that I still have listened to multiple times because that's how much I love those shows. I mean, there's a reason that like I wanted to use budgets that would have otherwise gone to my own original shows to make those shows, right? Is because like I believed in those stories so much and in those creators so much, and because I wanted to listen to them. And so like those are two of my favorite shows, and like I know that I'm technically promoting stuff from my own company, but like genuinely had nothing to do with the creative of those shows. Like genuinely just like made them possible. So I highly recommend listening because they're both excellent. Oh God, there was one. I mean, and yeah, and I think of the last year, I think my two favorite shows, and I'm probably forgetting something, but the two shows that I'm gonna limit it to shows that I'm like caught up on, right? But I think Camland and Red Valley have been my sort of two favorites in the last year of shows that I'm completely caught up on. I know I'm forgetting something, but those are the two that immediately jump out. And yeah, Camland, I consider Ella Watts a dear friend and an incredible creative collaborator. So obviously am a little biased on that. Red Valley, I've never talked to a single person who was involved with the making of that show. So I really just like, it's so funny. I was sort of aware of the podcast for a long time just from social media. But just from sort of seeing their name pop up. But then when I finally took a listen, I was sort of like blown away by how much I could not stop listening. Also a great show to listen. That and In Strange Woods are actually great shows to listen to specifically while playing the video game I mentioned, The Long Dark, because The Long Dark is all like you're sort of trying to survive in the Canadian wilderness. And, you know, In Strange Woods and Red Valley are both like take place in the snow in many ways. So it works out really well. Oh, Manuel, I'm so glad you like In Strange Woods. I'm really such a fan. I also listen to like the cast album with some degree of frequency. It's just I want more musical podcasts all the time. Okay, we are coming to the close of our time here. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I had way more people tuning into this than I was expecting for an 8 a.m. stream. Oh, Ray on TikTok says, In Strange Woods changed my brain chemistry. Oh my God, I'm so happy. I love that show so much. I love when people love that show because it just like deserves all the love. Go listen to Life with Leo too, because that show is amazing. It has 2 seasons and if you like rom-coms, if you like a big 2005 Pride and Prejudice girly, gender neutral, you will like Life with Leo. But yeah, thank you so much for joining and for your great questions and for listening to me ramble about audio drama, although I realize that is essentially the point of these streams. Becca, do you stream often? This is the first time I've caught you. Yes, so every last Wednesday of every month I stream. And I have been trying to do these live on TikTok as well. If you go to atypicalartist.co/create, you can see what time the stream is going to be. And so check that out at the last Wednesday of every month because I'll post on there. And you can also sign up for a mailing list that I did not mail out to this month. So I will try to remember to do that next month. But yes, go to atypicalartist.co/create and then go to atypicalartist.co/resources. Just go to atypicalartist.co and you'll find these things. And get those free resources. And, sign up for our mailing list, especially since we do have a new show coming out in September, hopefully, that I think is going to be really, really fun. And also, if you are a Bright Sessions fan, as of today, oh my gosh, TikTok is saying that there's inactivity. Okay, well, whatever. It says the live's going to end in 5 minutes. That's fine. I'm about to hop off. So if you're a Bright Sessions fan, we have a new hat in our merch store that I will post on Blue Sky and Tumblr. It's a very, very cute hat that says Stay Strange in embroidery on the front, and you can pre-order it now. So definitely go and do that. I'm really excited to get one of these hats myself. But thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. And as always, stay strange. And as always, go off and make your art and send it to me once you do so that I can listen to it. Okay. Thanks, everybody.